Ben-Gurion University in the Negev is paving the way forward in the wake of the October 7th campaign to significantly enhance many aspects of the over 50-year institution and the Negev as a whole, fulfilling the dream of Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. Now joining us in studio is Kaye, the Vice President for Public Affairs and Resource Development at Ben-Gurion University. Hello, and thank you for being here.
Emily, thanks for inviting me.
You're a busy man indeed.
Oh,
so, as we've seen, throughout history, when there have been crises or wars, we're seeing a generation of people from the diaspora feeling like they want to participate. What's unique about how this is really grown exponentially since October 7th, like never seen before?
So, first of all, you're absolutely correct. I would say for at least 200 years, probably more, since travel from country to country began, the Israel-diaspora relations, or the Eretz Israel Jewish community relations, have been defined in a whole lot of different ways, and one of them is giving philanthropy. We used to call it tzedakah. So this is nothing new. And if you look at the peaks of the history of the last 100 years, you will see that when there was a crisis in the Jewish world, and particularly in Israel, you see a dramatic increase in philanthropic gifts to Israel, to institutions in Israel. I think for a lot, first of all, there's a real need. People would identify a need and therefore want to give. But I think for people sitting outside of Israel, it's a way of them expressing their love and giving them something to do. And so again, you could see it just after the 67 war, you could see it after the Yom Kippur War, and a whole lot of times in our history line. And October 7th, of course, was a very dramatic moment in that time as well. I would say to you that, so Ben-Gurion University, as you mentioned before, we were hit disproportionately. We had, in the first days, we had scores of students and faculty killed, thousands of people displaced, faculty, students, etc., kidnapped, hostages, and all of a sudden we had thousands of our students who were being drafted to go on Tzav Shmon emergency call-up. And we had a staff and leadership meeting on the 8th of October and said, okay, these are the things, this is the situation, and we need to provide needs for what's going on here, and actually decided not to launch an emergency campaign on that day. Because we said, we have to take care of business now. We have to give grants now. We have to buy new laptop computers for students. We have to find housing for displaced people. All of these needs, and it needs to be done now within hours. And if we now say we're going to go out and do this, but we're going to wait until the money is raised, then that's not doing the job, the speed we need to do. So we spent the money first and said, we said to our leadership, we'll come back in a few days, and if once our reserve is finished, depleted, we'll come back and say we need more money. And I think we got a lot of respect out of that by being not opportunistic. There was a huge demand. We met the demand and then said, okay, now we're a few days into this, let's see what we need. And we then launched a campaign for these very, very specific needs for both our community who had been affected immediately, and then the things that were about to happen in the weeks and months that followed, and raised a sum of like $12 million that helped us address the needs. And I think our donors respected us for being responsive and not opportunistic.
Right, of course. And I think, when you look at also the course of history and the gather wars and what the needs were of the citizens at that given time, I mean, this time is so much more complicated. We're having soldiers and people talking about PTSD, things that weren't talked about in the wake of the other wars. People used to giving, you have, Israel, the bonds and the IDF and whatnot, but there are real needs of the people here on the ground. So I feel like, tell me if you agree, that people in the diaspora feeling so connected to where we're going through, there is a move also in a way that's actually going to help.
No, absolutely. But you have to differentiate between, you have to understand that there's sensitivity and people want to do the right thing. And if you're there with the right need at the right time, they will respond. And if you're there, let's just say cynically, then people will give, but they'll remember afterwards. One of the anecdotes I remember is that after the Carmel Forest fire, there was a branch of the Scouts in Eilat that was raising money to help the victims of the fire. Now, maybe that's an extreme example, and I've got nothing against the Scouts, but you cannot be in a situation. You have to be able to identify a real need and what the impact is going to be of an emergency situation. And the other thing that people have to understand, or organizations have to understand, is if you can't spend that money at the speed at which you're raising it, then it wasn't an emergency.
Right.
And I remember, as a lot of people will remember, after 9/11, the Red Cross raised millions of hundreds of millions of dollars, and about a year later a lot of that money was still there, and when asked they said, well, we're keeping it for future disasters. We cannot be in that situation, and no Israeli institution, university otherwise should be in that situation. If you say it's an emergency, it means you're going to need, you're able to spend the money now. That creates the trust that people are going to be with you when it's not an emergency as well.
Lastly, really quickly, because we're out of time, talk about, I know there are very big plans, I'm sure we'll hear more about it, but we know this was Ben-Gurion's vision. So is there going to be expansion of more programs, like as far as research, R&D, science? I'll
say two things. We were founded by a mandate by David Ben-Gurion long before it was called David Ben-Gurion University. Already in the 50s, he said there's got to be a university. In order to be able to develop the Negev, you need scientists there to learn how to use the sun for energy and grow things, and all of the things that people know about. There is a real danger at the moment that with instability in the Negev, there's a danger of depopulation, of the stronger population saying we're not going to stay there, we're going to move away. So Ben-Gurion University is doubling down on the mission that it had already, which is to reach out to the population in the Negev, whether it's the cities or the kibbutzim, and say, we're here for you, we can help in any way that you are able to identify as important to you. But our long-term plan is we received a plot of land called our North Campus. We're building a northern campus of our university in Beersheba, which will double the footprint of the university, and that will take care of an increasing number of students coming, but also the ITF intelligence and communication users who are moving down, and the idea is to give them a university degree at the same time as they're serving the country.
Wow. Jeff Kaye, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you again as more great plans develop.
Thank you very much.